Well, hello and welcome back to the House of Valentina. I'm Valentina, and today I wanted to talk about some decor mistakes that I think we all make. And I believe that the influence comes from minimalism, but they're mistakes that even those of us who aren't minimalists tend to make. I know you're gonna love today's video. It's gonna be loaded with tips and tricks on how to create a more luxurious home for yourself, even when you're working on a budget. I think actually all these tips are actually gonna be quite budget friendly, so I think you're gonna love them. Make sure you hit subscribe, give the video a big thumbs up, and let me know down in the comments if you agree, disagree. If you need more of these tips and tricks, let me know how you feel about this. Let's jump in. The first time I ever really heard about minimalism, I was in my 20s. We just moved to Copenhagen, Denmark, and it was freezing cold, and we were completely disoriented from where we were, having just moved from Morocco. And the cultures were just completely different. Life was very different. I was trying to get our kids settled in school, and we were learning a new language again, going back to language school. And it was a time in which there was a lot going on. And this idea of minimalism, when I first started to hear about it, it struck a chord. It struck a chord really deep, because minimalism, I think in so many ways, is about removing chaos from your life and simplifying your life and your home around you. It's definitely more than about just how you decorate. But this idea really just struck a chord with me the first time I started to really understand the idea of it. I saw homes that had very little in them that looked very budget friendly to me, right? I thought this was amazing. I loved the idea of needing to own less, but having my house look amazing, right? We lived in Denmark for 6 years, and over the years, there were a lot of things about minimalism that I really liked. I liked the idea of upsizing my things and buying fewer of them. I liked the idea of buying better quality, but there were some things that I just didn't like about minimalism, and I have learned over the years there's certain things that just don't work. The biggest mistake that I think minimalists make is that they don't add enough layers to their design. And I think that the design overall can just feel a little bit too empty. I think it can start to feel like there's just not enough going on in the room. There's not enough to look at. You don't have enough to work with to actually create with multiple textures. So examples of this would be having just more than just the sofa, right? Layering on a couple pillows, even if it's just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, can really give you a really nice layer to your sofa, and it can also make it more comfortable to sit on because you now have pillows to get comfy with. I think the same goes for your bed. I did a video tour many years ago when we were living in Copenhagen. It was one of my friends. He wanted to put his home on Airbnb, and I walked into his bedroom and he had 2 pillows. In fact, I think he actually only had 1, now that I think about it. And I was like, not really, not really. Actually what I said to him was, my mom would die. And I think you would die if you saw how many pillows she has on her bed, because my mom's the opposite. She has a million pillows, and she has to gingerly scoot them over because it's too much work to set the bed every night, okay? Like we're battling extremes here, okay? I think somewhere in the middle is a really nice place to land. It's where I find myself. I like a more clean line look on the bed just in general, but you can have more pillows than just 1. And I think that is a mistake also of minimalism, is that we believe that minimalism is about only having functional things in our homes. And I do think that that is another mistake of minimalism, because we get caught up in, I don't need this. Our homes generally are more than needs. They're usually full of things we want. None of us needs a TV. None of us needs a rug. None of us need a table. We can all sit on the floor and eat off of cardboard boxes, right? I've done that myself. eaten off of the cardboard boxes when we moved in because we had nothing. We were starting over. We have done that quite a few times in our lives, and I can tell you, your home is also your sanctuary. It's a place in which you go to rest and to restore yourself. So if you become too functional, which is something I hear a lot of people saying, we just only what we need. You become too, your life becomes too basic. It becomes too boring. There's not enough in your life to bring you satisfaction, to give you rest, to give you pleasure. Your home is supposed to do all of those things. So I think only buying for a functional space can be really, it can actually affect your mood. It can certainly affects the way that you feel in your home. And it might even make it to where you don't even really find a lot of joy in being at home. So I would go beyond the idea of only what I need to function and really think about the things that bring you joy and pleasure and surrounding yourself with some of those things as well. This is just my opinion. I'm probably gonna get in trouble for this, but I think sometimes minimalists, their homes are just a little too cold. And so when we try our best, we're purging and we're trying to diminish the things that we have and try to be so functional, we end up with a home that feels really cold and kind of barren. And that's my honest opinion, which I know is gonna be a little bit unpopular with the minimalist. I'm sorry in advance, it's just how I feel. When we lived in our home in Denmark and I would pair it all the way back, it just felt cold and empty. I found that putting art on the walls, again, those layering of items, these are the things that make the house feel like a home. And those are words that I've heard so many of you say over the years. It doesn't feel like a home. I remember when I showed my daughter, when we lived in Denmark, I showed her this magazine I subscribed to. I subscribe to it still. It's called Rum or Room, which is a magazine that's very high design from Denmark. I love it. I love their designs. I really still feel so much inspiration from them, but they can feel a little bit too much like an art gallery sometimes, where there's just not enough there for it to feel like it's a home. I think that the cozy factor is actually more important than we think it is. And I think that many of us, not all of us, but many of us crave a little bit of the softer side of life. And so we want, like here, I've got a bowl with little balls sitting in it. We don't need this. Could we take it? Yes, of course. Right? Minimalists, maybe they just wouldn't even want anything there. It just depends on what spectrum they land on as well. Because I swear, some of these minimalists, they like police the internet. They're like, that's not minimalism. There's too many things. I'm like, who's counting? And who made the rules? I don't think there's rules here, okay? It's what you feel most comfortable in. I tend to err on the side of keeping things quite pared back because I don't like a lot of clutter and it makes me feel a little bit anxious in my space. And I think that when you have a lot of stuff everywhere, right, you've got a lot to look at. So even having like a glass front cabinet, now your eye is gonna see a lot more than you would if that was solid. So there's a way in which you can think through your spaces. Think more than just how many things can I own? These are all things that you need to ask yourself because there is no actual rule for any of this. It's about how you feel in your space. One practical thing that I think that a lot of times we adapt from minimalism is the idea that we should have no curtains on the windows. Now, I have rooms in my house that have no curtains. You guys know, I know it's an unpopular opinion, and I know there's so many of you who love your blinds. Some of my clients have loved their blinds, and we have left them because they love them. I personally just hate them. I feel like I'm in a prison, and I hate blinds. So for me, I'd say, get rid of them. Now, if you have the little shades that come down, right? Roman shades, these are all great privacy options, but I think that a lot of times the minimalists tend to have nothing on their windows. Or people who are in the middle of decorating and don't know quite what to do, they make the same mistake as well. I really believe that having curtains in your home adds a layer, and it's a layer of softness. And so I think deciding per room what is right for that space is a really good way of going about it. I don't have a one-size-fits-all prescription for my clients. I don't say every single window in the house has to have a window covering, because then it just almost feels like, gosh, you know, I mean, do you like actually think through the decisions, or do you just decide every room has to have a curtain, every room has to have a shade? Like, what about the room design itself? Does it need the layer? Does it need something extra added to it? That's when I think you have to kind of take control of your own design and decide, does it need a little something more? I personally don't think that curtains have to be expensive. I do say that I love the ones, the pleated ones that I have in this room. I've got them now in the sunroom as well off of Amazon, and they're like really well made, like thick, really well made. They're backed with a great blackout lining, and they're pleated, and they just look really expensive. Of course, as a designer, I love when we get to custom make everything. Of course, I love that. But sometimes it's not practical. So don't let budget keep you down, because you can even go to places like IKEA and find really good curtains. I would just say double them and create a little bit more volume. I do think that that's a mistake that a lot of us make, that we think no window coverings is okay. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it just leaves the room feeling a little bit barren. Another thing that I see minimalists doing a lot, and I see a lot of you guys doing this as well, and that is not adding a rug. I really feel like a rug in most rooms of the house, just again, it goes back to this idea, like, okay, we like the layers, we like a little bit more. Do we need a rug? Most of the times, no. Maybe something to wipe your feet on, right? Like that's functional. Most of the time, we don't need a rug. They can be quite helpful in different seasons to making the house feel physically a little bit warmer, maybe keeping the warmth in, right? That's where the idea of the rugs probably originated from, was that people were trying to keep the house feeling a little bit warmer. But most of us are kind of past that, right? Most of us are looking at it more from a decorative standpoint. And a lot of times, you guys submit your photos, you guys send your photos in, and I still see rooms without rugs. And I just really think that a rug really helps anchor the entire space. It really designates the spaces. It says, this is the living room and this is the dining room. And it really just helps you have a focal point on which everything else kind of stems from. I do think a lot of times people go with rugs that are just too small, and that's a mistake as well, because then it's like a little tiny island in the middle of the room. I say always upsize as much as you can. Go as big as you possibly can on the rug. Fill up the room, because it really does make the room feel a lot bigger. Taking out the rug sometimes is a play that I have done, because I want the house to feel summer ready. I think in a dining space, you could go either way. Generally speaking, I think a rug is always a good idea. Add them to your bedroom, add them to your dining room, add them to your office, add them to the living room, the family room. A rug is such a good piece for layering and adding that extra something. So I just feel like when I look through minimalist photos, I tend to get drug into them because they're like an art piece. And I love minimalist. I love the minimalist aesthetic to this day. I still love it. But when I find myself pulling that back too far, I feel like it just gets a little too cold, it's a little too functional, and I feel like there's just something missing from my space. Another mistake that minimalists make, and it is a big mistake, one that I was like, when I got to the US, I was making this mistake because I'd really studied minimalism a lot. And I realized this is a huge mistake, and that is not adding enough lighting. Oh my goodness. If I can just tell you right now, adding on layers and layers of lighting will completely and absolutely transform your home. You need lighting. Whether for videos, I always turn it off because it can kind of mess with the lighting of the actual video. But during the day even, I have everything set on little dimmers. I love to have the house lit. I have candles going, which add another layer of light, right? Like I think lighting from the top all the way down is so important. And minimalist, or at least the ones that I know people get upset with me when I say, let's not make generalizations, okay? Just some minimalist, they don't tend to layer on the lighting, and neither do people who are non-minimalist. But it's really important because it really adds to the ambiance to your space. So you've seen over the years where I've just started layering and layering lighting. So in this room, I've got the wall sconces, I've got a little light over the china cabinet, I've got a light over in the big light in the room, I've got recessed lighting, and Jack even has like lighting back behind like the trees and stuff. So I really believe that lighting is so key that not doing enough of that will really affect the way that your house feels, whether you are a minimalist or not. So I say layer it on. In the bedroom, add lamps to the nightstands, add a corner lamp by the chair, add lamps to the dresser, add an overhead light, maybe some recessed light, maybe some wall sconces. Just keep going and take that approach in every room of your house, because I would say that this one thing was probably the most transformative out of all of the things that I learned from leaving a little bit of that minimalist approach behind. It's that powerful, it's that important. If you're worried about price range, just don't, because you can shop at places like Home Depot. You can shop at places like Amazon. I've got my entire Amazon storefront with a lighting category with all different options in it. And I always recommend visual lighting to you guys because they have really good quality lighting. And that's where we as designers tend to go to shop for our clients. And now you have access to that, whether you're a designer or not. So you can get some great lighting, and over there you'll find it in all different price ranges. But either way, minimalists tend to underdo the lighting, and when you move into a home that doesn't have much light, or there's just one kind of dingy bulb and the overhead light, your house at night can be a little bit creepy, actually. It really can. So let's just dispel the creepiness and add the lighting. You can let me know how you feel about these down in the comments. As always, I leave the links for the items that you've seen popping up down below in the show notes if you'd like to do a little bit of shopping, or if you're looking for some more inspiration. I always link up my Pinterest account because I have so much inspiration from all different styles over there, and lots of different genres are represented. I also have an amazing Amazon storefront. If you're working on a budget, you can always hop over to houseofvalentina.com. That's the landing site, which got all the links to everything if you're just not sure where to go. But either way, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope it gave you some food for thought and just encouraged you to grow and to become. And if your home is not making you happy, you have the power today to start by, maybe you need a purge, or maybe you don't need to, right? Maybe you need to move some things around. Whatever it is, whatever you've taken away from this video, write it down in the comments so we can have a really good conversation down there. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, bye.